or whoever's not watching from Texas, good morning to you too. Mr. Gonzalez, good morning. Kay, good morning. Pastor Hermes, good morning. Dee Dee, good morning. Mr. Gomez, good morning. Emma, good morning. I'm watching you guys from my world geography class. Good morning from your world geography class. Hope you and all the other people are, I don't know.
Nice. Good morning, everyone.
Did
Thank
you
y'all
see?
for joining us
I didn't know what I was going to
on
say.
this beautiful Tuesday
Good
morning.
morning, Josiah. Man, it is a nice
It's
morning
a
though.
great, yeah, it's great.
You know what's a really nice morning though?
Here we go.
When your wife decides. He put good morning. What a dummy. Just kidding. Josiah, you're super smart. What else? What is our news today? I know that there was a $14 million $14 million budget for Jesus Revolution, and as of this week, it has made $50 million.
It's a great movie.
But it's $50 million in profit, so
Yeah.
it's already made the budget back plus the profit.
Total
So
hit.
that's good. It's a hit. What else? What else am I missing in this world? The news today. Well, besides a bunch of things blowing up and trains derailing, and
We would not be good like check the news people.
nah, I don't think so. Well, because you go look like news today, and you're hoping for some good news, but the only thing people want to report on is like, bad news. And so like there was this one time we were driving down the highway, you and I remember? I said this one time, it was like a week ago.
Okay.
We're driving down the highway. There's like all these cars stopped and stuff like that. And you never think you'd see
Oh,
like
yeah.
you never think you'd see
Gosh, it was bad.
what like it's like that on the TV shows or in the movies. You never think you'd see something like that,
Yeah.
And low key, why traffic slows down so much. It's not because it's just one lane. It's because it's one lane and everybody wants to know
What's happening?
what's going down. My parents, when I was a kid, used to make like they throw a blanket over my head, and it'll be, like anytime there was like a car accident, like, oh, don't look. And then there's this one time where I
You
looked.
peeked.
Yeah, there's this one time where, like, my mom's like, put this over his head, and so mom put it over his head, and he's like, I'm sure it'll be fine. Dad's like, I'm sure it'll be fine, because most of the time it's nothing. And then like, mom's like, no, put it. And like they saw something. I was like, what? And so they put it
How old
over.
were you?
I had to have been like 7. I had to have been like 7 years old. And so I put it over. I'm like, don't worry, mom, I got it. And I put my t-shirt over. And I was like, I had it over my face, but I can clearly see through everything. I could have gone like through the shirt and blown out a candle. Like it was. And so I'm looking. And, I saw like blood. And they're like, oh, you can take it down. And I'm like, you know, but you ever had that like safe space, that little like, if you're like getting a little anxious or whatever and you go like this and you feel safe in your space, you know what I mean? You ever felt like that? Well, I used to feel like that, but I used to like to have like, I like having a secret, or like, let's say I have like one sock that's like really weird on right now, but no one knows but me. I like that type of stuff. Like I like even when like my friend makes graphics for Clark, my folk band, when he makes graphics for Clark, he will find like inside to inside stuff. Like I like that. He's like, this is a picture of a cloud, but it's not just a picture of a cloud. It's a picture of a cloud that was printed off the first King James Bible. So I'm like, okay, that's cool. I like that type of stuff.
And no one else knows it.
And no one else knows it, just me. So I'm like that. But also what I like to do when I was a little boy is I would like, when I would put my shirt over my head or take off my shirt, I'd like stick my tongue out at whoever I was in front of. I'd be like that. Well, I only did it because I liked it because no one knew I was doing it. And so like he'd do, and I gotta take off my clothes. And one day my dad's like, we see you every time you do that, right? Like, you're not doing that in secret. Like, we can see you sticking your tongue out. And he's like, why do you do that? And I was like, because what is their answer? Like, I don't know. It's just, I was being funny. He said, but you didn't show it to anybody. How do you explain that as a kid? It's funny to me. It was to make me laugh. But I hope everyone's having a good morning. We were having prayer at 6 a.m. It was good. And I'll tell you what, those 6 a.m. prayers, they're good. There's a lot of people showing up to them. And, because you'll go and you'll close your eyes and you'll start to pray. And then you open your eyes. Next thing you know, there's like 8 people that weren't there a second ago. And since it's all quiet, like it's like a bunch of ninjas. You don't hear them come in. And so, it's good. Make sure you go to bed on time, though, so you're not groggy when you do go. That's a good thing, because then you end up like fighting sleep and you're not praying. So, but go to 6 a.m. prayer. We have prayer again today. Let's get all the announcements out of the way real fast. You didn't say anything today.
Oh, okay, let's do announcements. Just put up whatever graphic Miss Amy in the
Good morning.
Because there's a couple.
Morning.
Good morning, everyone. Men's prayer. The men are gathering Saturdays at 7 a.m. here at Church in the City. That is happening every Saturday. So if you're able to join them, come and join them for their D group. They're not having just prayer services, but they're discussing different topics. So if you want more information, you can contact Pastor Larry. Next announcement. Bus drivers are needed. Hallelujah. As we are growing and as we expand and more people are coming and we can go into more places, we need more bus drivers. So it's a great opportunity that we have, that as we grow the church, more people can serve. So if you want to be a part of that, please contact the bus ministry. The email is on this screen. Next announcement. Outreach, April 1st. We are having an outreach at Bay Island for Easter. We are partnering with Overflow Now Ministries, with Evangelist Marissa and Luke, and we're going to be partnering, and we're going to have a great time. It is April 1st. There's at 10 a.m. So you meet here at church at 10 a.m. You get your t-shirt. If you already have a t-shirt, then bring your own t-shirt. Bring it washed, bring it nice. And if you don't have one yet, you can get one here. And then we go out. They kind of discuss the game plan, and then we go out and we do the outreach. And it is phenomenal. Nursing home ministry every second and fourth Saturday of the month. If you want to be a part of that great ministry, contact outreach at citcdallas.org for more information.
That was really cool, right?
Yeah. Victory over grief is happening already, but if you want to join them, or if you know someone that can benefit from this group, you can contact Ms. Zakum. Her email's on the screen, or Kiki Wise. They do 10 a.m. I believe they gather here, I think, Saturdays, because I see them. Yeah, it's Saturdays at 10 a.m. But if you want more information, you can contact Ms. Zakum with more details of when to show up and all that kind of stuff. Mission trip to Kenya, November 3rd through the 16th. It's coming up. So if you're interested, or you are on the fence, but you want more information before you make a decision, just contact Elder Barbara and she'll give you all the details.
Did I tell y'all how I found out we were even going to Kenya?
Yes.
Did I tell y'all? God, I was like, hey, you want to go to Kenya? And I didn't know we were going to Kenya as a mission trip.
No, why would we go to Kenya?
I was like, what? Why?
He's like, let's go to like Greece or something.
Oh, no, because I said like, because she didn't know I didn't know. Right? You didn't know that I didn't know we were going to Kenya?
I just assumed.
She didn't know I didn't know. So she's like, would you like to go to Kenya? And my natural response is like, I'd rather go to Comic-Con. Like, if you're suggesting vacation destinations.
Yeah, he was like, if you're suggesting taking a trip and spending money. So she's like,
hey, do you want to go to Kenya? And I'm like, I'd rather go to Comic-Con. And she's like looking at me like I have leprosy. Like,
because I thought he was talking about the missions trip. I was like, are you serious right now?
Would you rather lead people to the Lord? I said, no, actually, in fact, I'd rather go buy comic books. That's what she thought I was saying. And so she's like,
what is wrong with you?
Like, Kenya. I'm like, yeah, I know. Why can't, no.
Yeah, it was a confusing,
and
like 10
minutes.
minutes.
She's like, no, Jordan, we're going on a missions trip to Kenya. The church is going to a missions trip in Kenya. I said, oh, well, you see, we didn't know that.
I would still rather go to Comic-Con.
Yeah, but Comic-Con, no, so, the Pastor Mike used to say the lack of information leads to speculation.
Right.
And that is true. Good morning, Mr. Zuniga.
It's
Watching
Tommy
from
White.
work
Good
in Dallas.
morning. So, if you want more information on the Kenya trip, just contact Elder Barbara. Next announcement. Iglesia en la Ciudad. Spanish services have been phenomenal, going great. Wednesdays at 7 p.m. with Pastor John and his wife. So join them. And if you know anyone who would benefit or that is interested in going to church, but they might not feel super comfortable or are more fluent in Spanish, invite them to the Spanish service. Next announcement.
Next service.
Baby dedications coming up. If you know someone or if you want to dedicate your baby, contact April Soto. Her email is on the screen for registration details. Candy request. I know it says March 26th, but they are still accepting candies. So if you have any donations or if you want to just contribute to all the candies the kids are going to eat and go running and looking for, just contact Jen and she can give you more information.
Palm Sunday extravaganza.
What a great
what a
graphic.
Super like colorful. Look at the shadow of the palm. Did you? Am I the only one that? I'm a genius.
Palm Sunday, April 2nd at 10:30 a.m. For city kids. There will be games, food, prices, and more. If you have any information or want to help or want to serve or want to add to the prizes, contact Jen for more information. Her email is on the screen. Announcement.
Doesn't that graphic just make you happy though? Like, tell me you're not. Well, maybe you might not, but most people that makes happy right there.
You need to get saved. If you heard the call that God has called you and you know you have a calling on your life, you're making fun of me and I'm gonna like hit you while this announcement's up.
No one can see that I'm giggling. No one heard anything.
Yeah, no one can see if I hit you either.
That's true.
If you feel called to be in the ministry or if you feel called to get trained or you just want a deeper knowledge of the Bible, come and get more information. You can go to the emails on the screen, goodnewsadmin@citcdallas.org, and you can ask for more information. You can ask for the application. We officially start in August, so it's not too late to apply. So if you want more information or you're interested, just contact that email on the screen. And it is
accredited. It's accredited. Yeah. They're actual credits that, you're not just leaving with like a certificate of good job. No, it's an actual accreditation.
You get a degree out of it.
You will come out with it with a degree.
Yeah, phenomenal. Food pantry is always available after service. So if you are in need of any supplies or any food or any canned goods, come to the food pantry after service. It is now in the student center, and we will hook you up.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Tell them Pastor Jordan sent you, and they'll give you food.
Yeah.
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 Isn't that no? Now, I don't know the age of what you grew up, because, when you ever get older people, they're always like, oh, you think it was hard?
I had to walk to school 1,000 miles.
Yeah, I had
barefoot.
I had to wear trash
no
bags
jacket.
Every day. Yeah, we didn't have underwear. We had to use floss, So like, that was always it. And then like you're like, oh, okay. But then this generation, they're like, my mom won't give me like an iPhone. You're like, dude, an iPhone. I was lucky to get
flip
like those
phone.
Cheap like Samsung, those flip phones. You're worried about.
I thought
texting.
I made it when I had the Sidekick.
Button. I was actually good at it too, because I thought it was so lightning fast.
It was great.
And like legit, like when you were texting back then, you're like, because you're like.
But do you remember how like excited people were? Like, dude, this is the best phone, the Sidekick.
No.
Like,
did you remember when the Razr came out?
Oh my gosh, it was like the iPhone of the. Everyone had it.
If you didn't have a Razr,
and if you had the pink one, you were legit
impoverished.
Yeah, poverty mindset.
You grew up on mines. So yeah, but
everyone had the Razr.
And my parents are like, oh, these kids, my dad even like likes this song called like, it's about like kids that are so overprotected now. Like I used to like ride my bike without a helmet. Like it's this country song, right? I used to ride my bike without a helmet. And they're like, okay, yeah, but you also had like 6 concussions.
Well,
So
when
like,
I was in 6th grade, I had a phone this size, like this size with the little antenna,
oh yeah,
and like the buttons, like all the digits on it, and like the tiniest of screens. Like that was my
yeah, yeah.
first phone, and then I upgraded to that, which it was, and I still have it in a box somewhere in the apartment. It's like this small, and it had like the tiniest screen, and you flipped it open, real cool.
You did the
Yeah,
little
yeah, the little tiny one. So
when you know, but the worst thing that ever happened to flirtatious phone texting was when iPhone came out. That's like when everything started really distinct, because I would write like this really like flirtatious text, and I would send it out to like a dozen girls. Like I'll send it out to whoever
just mass text.
got onto that, and then like I would. I
It
didn't
was
know
too
I was.
much work
I
in the
didn't
old
know I
phones.
was making a group message. A group message was
You
a
did
new
not.
thing. I did. It was one mistake, and I never did it again, because I sent it to everybody. I'm talking about
That's
everyone.
hilarious.
I
Like
sent
you
it to
just put all the girls in your contacts.
all the girls I found remotely attractive. I sent in like a text message like, "Hey, like the moon's really pretty today. Like, did you see how the moon looked right now?"
That's
Or
hilarious.
something like really cringy like that. And then like they texted me back, "Hey, this is like a group message. You should probably stop doing this."
That's so embarrassing.
And it was Kristen too. It's like, you should probably not do this anymore.
That's embarrassing.
Like the only thing they didn't say was shame on you. And so I was like, well, hey, you know.
Mr. Zuniga, we didn't
We'll
quite
see.
catch the beeper stage.
No,
that was right
my,
before
my
us.
My dad had a
we
beeper.
didn't quite catch it.
Yeah, my dad had a beeper. Now he mentioned the BlackBerry. Blackberries
No,
were.
but we had access to
we had
Blackberries.
the
But
little pens
gosh,
and everything.
they were like, I have no idea how people texted on them because the buttons were like.
But do you remember how much
micro.
money our parents spent on getting us those phones? And
Wait,
now you can't pay me to have one of those.
My favorite thing though is that like back in the day, you can buy any song you wanted to be your ringtone.
Yeah. Like, hey, this Jordan Miller wasn't able to make it to the phone, so leave a message. I went skydiving. I went Rocky Mountain climbing. I went, and, that's
This is dumb.
leave a message, And so it was all those, and like Gatto's
great.
was probably like, hey, I'm in the club, like hers was like anything 50 cents. Gatto liked 50 cents so much she was a full $1.75. She was a big fan, like, and so so those are like the things back in the day, but those weren't me. Like that wasn't me. And you would get in trouble because my parents would be like, "You spent $1 on what?" And I'm like, "Oh man!" Like, "Hey, they
My
charged me for
ringtone.
this," and I didn't understand what the big deal was. Like, it was $1, but then there was all these surcharges or whatever. And so they're getting upset. Everyone's getting upset, and I'm like, so what I had done was I had purchased Devil Wears Prada's like song on Gilbert Mendez's phone, right? And I set it up as his main ringtone. He was very proud of it. He was very happy with it.
Yeah, great song.
Great song.
Yeah.
Now here's the thing. I would call him during service because Pastor Cindy used to make him sit like up front because he'd talk too much. So he'd sit up front, and I'd call him, and he'd have his phone and Gilbert. And these are those times in a time called cargo pants. Remember those? If you needed extra cargo to go with you, I got the pair of pants that were made just for you. Or even worse, the cargo shorts. Remember those Dickies? Remember those?
Are they not a thing anymore?
What, are you working on an engine right now?
Oh, kids
No.
don't wear them anymore.
No, and so, but Gilbert had something worse on top of all that. Because I grew up in the emo scene kid times,
First of all, I just want to make a point that like the kids today look way too good for their own life.
Yeah, it's
Good.
all those hormones. It's all the darn hormones in their food.
But like,
let me tell you something. It's all the hormones.
if we
that they
pull
put
out
in their food.
pictures of middle school and high school,
Yeah, I mean, even next live stream we'll do it because I'm gonna pull up a picture of and because it's all quite natural. Have you
I
seen
have a
how
picture-
handsome Quentin is?
No. I have a picture in middle school where like I was wearing a basketball shirt and I had the pull away pants.
Ooh, gosh.
Like the buttoned ones on the side.
But for example, because it's like
It was
that
bad.
that bloom moment, that moment where you're like, oh,
Mine
hey,
hit me late.
you know, like
after high
if
school.
you would have seen what I looked like in high school, I dressed like a skinny kid, but I wasn't a skinny kid. You know, I was always roly poly oly, and like for example, when I first met my student Bo, from first glance was a short kid, wore glasses, very hyper, and then like it was almost as if like a bippity boppity boop type of thing happened, and he comes, he's like, Pastor Jordan, how are you doing? It's nice to see you today, and he's huge, and he has all these muscles, and it's still hyper, but it's all and so
Yeah,
completely different kid. Like now I have him helping me catch, and I'll put one, and like one kid will carry him down. Bo can carry two down like that, and like and so he's
Yeah.
and so yeah, all these like late bloomers. But do you remember what it meant to be like unprepared going to school? Like, do you remember what that was? I mean, now for my early bloomers over there, my boomers, glad for you. I know that you had to sit around the
Cross the
fire
ocean.
hydrant, pop it open, and play with Spanky and the kids, but that's not how it was with us, okay? With us, now it's even different now, because what did they have when they
I
went
don't
back
know
then?
what route you're taking, so just
I'm
make
talking about
it plain.
music. Music.
Oh, okay.
Music. When they went to high school, they had to wait till after school to listen to music.
Well, I had the Discman.
Yeah, we had the Walkmans. Yeah, the
Walkman.
Discmans. I had that. Now,
But if you like,
yeah,
if you like stepped wrong, like, and then, like,
yeah. So, because you're walking with it, and either you had a good one or you had a bad one.
I had the good one.
Well, because your dad made more money. I had the one. Let's say I had the one I deserved. I had the one I deserved. Spanky and the kids. Yeah. So there is. My dad would be like, "Hey,
Those
listen."
were great,
It
but
was,
you had to carry like a
It
bag.
was $100 to buy a good disc.
Yeah,
it was
great.
$100
But
to
you
buy
had
one.
to buy like a separate case for all the CDs.
And do you remember all the additions it had on there? You want to?
I do miss those
Do you want to
times, though.
spice it up?
Do you not miss those times?
Of course
remember,
I do. That's why I still buy CDs.
I remember.
Because back then the CD had to be good from beginning to end. You couldn't pick which ones and which ones you didn't like.
Yeah.
That's why artists now release in singles, because they don't release the whole album.
Well, I remember there was a point where like everyone had like a phone, an iPad, a little computer, or maybe like something different. And I remember my dad carrying like all these like objects, right? And he's like, I hope one day this is all just in one item. Like, I hope wouldn't it be great if it was just like in one?
Your dad was like longing for where we are today.
Yeah.
But
He's like, I don't want to carry all this stuff.
But you had the Discman, and like, let's say you had a good Walkman, you could put it in your backpack, and those old backpacks had those headphones, like extension. Like there was like a hole for your headphones. Those don't exist anymore because you don't even need wires for headphones anymore. And so they had those. Now you're poor if you have wires going into your ears. Did you know? Now
It's
you're
like
like
lame.
Pastor
You
Jordan.
still
Like if
have
you
those?
hey, we wanted to bless you with this. It's like $100. Like, oh, cool, thanks.
Do you have money problems?
Yeah. Monkey problems. No, and so you would walk with your Discman, and you're like, I found a reason. Oh, so it was either one of two problems. Now tell me, were you ever this tight with cash? Okay, was ever like found reason for me to change you,
It
and you
was
start
the
walking.
bending the wire.
Or yeah. Okay. Okay, that's it. To change who I used to be. Note to self: buy new headphones, and then you'd go. And back then, the quality of headphones didn't really matter. Like it wasn't like I want Bose, I want some good bass.
No.
You had all these additions to that CD player.
It was, what mattered? It was just like the cushion on it.
Yeah.
You just replaced the little cushion.
If
on
you
the
didn't
earpieces.
have that cushion, it was like
painful.
having a freaking guillotine on your ears. It was like
Yeah, it like
hot iron. It was like it was all the difference between this and like this. It was like it was a
yeah,
big
that was
difference.
rough. Okay, is this related at all to like?
Yeah, talking about being prepared.
Oh,
It's about being prepared. When you'd come and you were being prepared with what you are. How ready were you? And back in the day, I was not ready. I was infamous for breaking my CD players. I broke every CD player that was ever entrusted to me. I even had this beautiful black CD player, and my dad was like, "Don't mess this one." And then, sure enough, like I'm telling you, maybe like 3 days later, I broke it in half.
I was the opposite. I would like buy the protection for everything and like the screen protection, or like I would leave the plastic on there.
Like, what's the worst that can happen? And so there was this once I broke it, and my dad was like sitting there, and he didn't see me break it, so I'm like, oh my gosh! Like,
did y'all grow up with the dinosaurs?
Well, yes, I took the CD player and I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like, I just legit destroyed the CD player, and so I said, I know what I'll do. It's gonna hurt me, but it's gonna work. So I walked in front of my dad. I'm like, hey, Dad, can I show you a song? And then I fake tripped, but I really did land on my face. That's what was going to sell the fall. So I'm like, Dad, hey, Dad, poof, and I hit myself hard. And when I hit myself, the CD player hit, and like it like broke in pieces. And Dad's like watching everything, and I'm like, oh, and you know, like you hit yourself. And there was like a second where you hit your face, and I'm like, I did.
That wasn't worth it.
Too much, like, and so I'm like that, and my dad's like, son, and I go, oh no. The CD player.
Your poor dad, Jordan.
It's broken. And Dad's like, I'll get you a new one. Thanks, Dad. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. And so I earned that one, okay? Right. Everyone turn their Bibles to the book of Genesis, South Texas. Yeah. Here's one other issue that y'all probably didn't have up here in these northern parts, is if you left your CD player in the car, it could potentially melt. And that's more of a Laredo thing.
Yeah, no, it was rough.
You could actually bake cookies in your car in Laredo.
There was actually projects that we would do that you go outside and you cook eggs
on the skillet, like, outside.
Do stuff, yeah. That was part of our science classes.
Yeah, part of the science class. What'd you guys learn today? It's hot. What'd you learn today?
I just realized
hot outside.
That was part of our science classes, like in elementary school.
Global warming. Part of your science. There ain't no global warming. It was hot back in the day too. Turn your Bibles to the book of Judges, please.
You said Genesis.
I mean Judges. Judges chapter 6. Love y'all. See y'all Sunday. Oh, are you signing off now? Thanks. Now that we're getting into the word.
She's probably changing classes.
So it's talking about how ready. We're going to talk about how ready. What are you ready for? And what are you choosing to respond to? It's a good thing to talk about, in response to, like, what you buy in your groceries or what you buy depends seasonally. You're not going to go buy a Christmas wreath out right now because it ain't Christmas. It's Easter. Did you know the number one selling Easter candy of all time?
Peeps.
No.
Chocolate eggs.
Nope. Jelly beans. Jelly beans are the number one sold candies. Why? You know what number 2 is?
Peeps.
Peeps.
So why jelly beans?
I don't know. I don't even eat jelly beans.
Who?
Well, that's not true. But that ain't true. I like jelly beans. But I don't like the licorice ones. If you put a licorice thing in there, you have something against me. And you know what's the most popular jelly beans? Bean Boozled.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
So all these, candies being sold. Peeps, every Easter season, just Easter season, they
survive off Easter.
Well, they sell 700 million Peeps every Easter. Did you know that?
Like across the world or just U.S.?
Just the U.S.
Ugh.
Just the U.S. because Easter isn't celebrated everywhere across the world.
Right. Is that many Peeps?
That 700 million Peeps of sugar, trans fat, and pure goodness.
I wonder.
Peeps are of the Lord. I love Peeps. I have to buy some. I snort them like cocaine. I love me some Peeps. Can you guess?
Have to hide them.
Can you guess the third favorite candy? Because we're only go up to the fourth.
The third favorite candy during Easter?
Yes.
Chocolates.
It's yes and no.
The bunny chocolate.
No, it's Cadbury cream egg. Is The third most popular, and those are delicious, by the way. The fourth most popular is chocolate bunnies. Chocolate bunnies is the third most popular. So that's what you have. That's
I don't
information.
like any of those.
Reese's isn't until like number 7. I know that's crazy, but jelly beans and Peeps are number 1. But okay, Gideon. Judges chapter 6 verse 11. Now, we're going to talk about this with a couple different aspects. We're going to touch base on this. We're going to revisit this. We're going to really just try to ground into this. Why? Because it's important on what you respond to. If you're taking notes, if you're writing things down, whatever you have, and I know we kind of started late in the game, but we started the live stream late. But listen, what are you responding to? If you're writing down notes, write, respond to heaven and not circumstance. Respond to heaven and not circumstance. It's important for believers today and for Christians today, and if you're making points, point number 1 is to stay war ready. Paul says we fight the good fight of faith. Paul also said, for the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but they are of the Spirit. So there is a battle taking place, and to stay on your toes is important. And we're going to see here in the story of Gideon, all the requirements that God has on his army. All the requirements that God's going to place for Gideon are the requirements that we should make applicable to ourselves today. Alrighty, that's good. So first things first, don't respond to circumstances, respond to heaven. What does that mean? You respond to what God's moving. You respond to when God calls. What does that mean? That's all the difference between this. My father years ago, he had this stroller. It was me, Bethany, and Josiah. Josiah was just born. Bethany was in the stroller. Josiah was in the stroller, and I had to hold on to that loop on my dad's belt, like that. If I let go, it'd be 7 lashes, and then he'd hit me in the chest with the phone book, and he'd tie me up with an electric blanket.
Were you ever on the leash as a kid?
Never. I was never, but I was worse.
Were they not invented at that time?
No, they had them at the time, but Dad didn't like it. But they did something even worse to me. I was strapped to my dad like Yoda. You know, like on the back, like I was right here.
Yeah.
And Dad says his neck was always sticky because they'd always get me ice cream, and I'd always and like all over my poor father.
I would not. I would put you on a leash right away if you did that to me. That's gross.
So, yeah, but that was me. You know,
I don't know if they call them leashes. I should probably not. I need to look that up.
You made me forget what I was going to say. What was the original thing that I said? Backtrack.
Responding to heaven. What does that mean?
Oh yeah, I was holding on to the corner of his loophole because once I got away and he found me. Yeah, the belt loop. He found me in the mall. Like I had gotten out. And can you guess where he found me?
Yes, Laredo Mall, the Looney Tunes store.
No,
the candy store.
That was the WB store, by the way. And no, I was right in front of the Great American Cookie Stand. and I was looking. There was this one time Nestle Toll House, those booths in the mall did me dirty.
Why does that make so much sense? When we were at the mall.
I love cookies. Cookies is one of my weaknesses. Cookies specifically.
We were at the mall and he's like, "Can I please just go get a cookie?" And I was like, "Fine, let's just stop, right?"
Yeah.
So then Jordan orders. Jordan orders and he's like, "Do you have a rewards number?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Oh, it's nice to see you again, by the way. You were here earlier."
I was hey.
I'm looking at him like
I'm like, "Hey, what are you doing, man? Like, what are you? Hey, shut up, bro. What?" Because because he's like, "Oh, hey, man, nice to see you again." This Amy's losing it over here. So, right. But that was me. So, my dad was walking. We're in Harlingen, not in. Oh, we're in Harlingen, and he's pulling this cart, and I'm talking about responding to heaven. So he's pushing this what is it called? A stroller. And this lady, this Hispanic lady, had 2 babies and all her groceries in her arm, and she was having a hard time. And the Lord impressed it upon my father's heart, give her your stroller. Now, listen, my dad just had a 3rd child. I don't think any of us were planned. And he just had his 3rd child. And, he's like, what? Lord, I can't. You know what my wife would do to me? And it was a good stroller. And so the Lord says, give her the stroller. So Dad says, okay. So he picked me up, took all the groceries out of there, picked up my sister, took me out, and he put us on the ground, and he took the babies from her arm, put them in the stroller, strapped them in, put them in the stroller, strapped them in, took all her groceries, and gave her the stroller. And she didn't know what to do. She didn't speak any English. So she kept she would do that to my dad. And that's gonna make me cry. Anyway, so she was just loving on my father. And my dad says, okay, take her. And says, Lord, what am I going to do? By the time he got home, someone had actually blessed my dad with that exact same stroller. And it was waiting for him there. But that wasn't the reward. That was just what he was due. The reward was that week, our car had gone out. That same week. But the day the car had gone out, someone called my dad and says, hey, Pastor Jeff, someone just bought you a van.
Wow.
I need you to come over here and sign for it. My dad says, what? So he goes, and Dad says, to this day, we don't know who it was.
Wow.
And so as they drive to the dealership, and there's a beautiful van there waiting for him. And I remember that van. All my childhood was in that van. And so there's that van waiting for him. It's like, this van is brand new, barely any miles on it. It's for you.
Wow.
And so my dad signed for it, and we left that place with a brand new vehicle. And look, and that's what happens when you respond to heaven. When you respond to the Lord, there's something that's different that happens. Remember when we were in D.C.
Yeah.
And we were in Georgetown in D.C. and the night had gone a little bit long. We were partying and drinking. I said, no, we went too late. We got cupcakes.
Jeez. Jordan.
No, I'm just kidding. It was a joke. Was Amy? No, we went there
What?
because
You ate too many Peeps because you're on something else.
I didn't eat any Peeps so far. I can only eat a row a day. She doesn't let me down the whole box. I could though if I wanted to. Anyway, not like anyone challenged me. So we're there, and this car comes to pick us up. We hire that Uber, and
I really don't know which story this is.
We prayed for the Uber driver.
Right.
And the Uber driver was crying. I've never been to Uber driver. The Uber driver is crying, and he's like, I can't believe the coincidences and the odds of this happening. And I said, no, it's what happens when you respond to what God's put you in. You remember we led that person to the Lord.
I have no recollection of that.
Wow.
Not that it didn't happen. I just don't remember. I remember the other testimony.
Which one?
That we were short on cash, and we were just going to Washington in faith. And then we found
boom.
We literally found $700 and no one to return it to.
Yeah, and we waited too.
Yeah, we waited.
1, 2, 3.
You know what? I'm done with you. Just finish your message.
No, but make sure that you're responding to heaven. I had the opportunity to see Chris Estrada preach the other day. Chris Estrada is a very good preacher. He's from El Paso, and talking about the testimonies that the Lord's doing through the ministry he's with. That they did that whole concert in Los Angeles, and 500,000 people gave their lives to the Lord for the first time. That's not something to be made light of.
Right.
And so he's giving these testimonies, and he's talking about what's happening, with the youth. And one of the students in the youth ministry was driving down, and he was at HEB, or he wasn't at HEB, but the Lord told him, go to HEB, go to the cereal aisle. There's going to be a guy holding a box of Cheerios. His name's going to be John. Pray for his back. And so he's like, okay, let's go. So he went to HEB, went to the cereal aisle. There's no one there. He waited around, no one there. Waited around, nobody there. He came back, and there's this huge bodybuilder that was there. And he's looking at, Cheerios. And so the guy's like, oh, boy, it had to be him. So the guy went up to him and says, is your name John? Like, yeah, how'd you know that? And he got real upset. How did you know this? Who are you? And he's like, no, do you have back problems? And then the dude was furious. Like, how do you know I have back problems? And he says, Jesus told me, dude. Like, Jesus told me,
Don't kill me.
don't kill me. And so he says, can I pray for your back? What's the worst that can happen? So he prayed for his back. God heals his back. And right then and there, the guy starts crying. He says, I was listening to music and I was driving when a voice in my head told me to come to HEB to the cereal aisle. And he says, and the guy said, well, that's Jesus. And if you don't give your life to him today, you're never going to do it. So the guy says, okay, like, well, what do I do? And he led him through the sinner's prayer. Wow. That's being war ready.
But I will say, though, that like responding because how do you phrase it? Don't respond to your circumstances, respond to heaven. There is a sacrifice on your part to do that.
Yeah, it doesn't come like with nothing worked towards or poured into that.
Well, no, but I'm saying like there's going to be a step that's going to require obedience and sacrificing and rejecting the flesh. It's not going to always be so simple as like just choose this or like, but it's being conscious that you have an opportunity to respond to a God moment in front of you, and that you have to reject your nature of I'm too shy, or the nature of, well, I don't really want to do that right now, or I'm not comfortable, or I don't want to go talk to a stranger. There's practical things that you're going to have to deny and get over to get in that opportunity. Because listen, a lot of people hear these testimonies and they say, Lord, I want to be part of that. I want to have those same testimonies. I want to live like that.
Yeah, but then you're not doing anything to go out in there. And
opportunities come, but you're not willing to step out of that. You're not willing to, be embarrassed, or you're not willing to that like slight chance of what if they reject me?
Pause, because you're already going into another point that I was going to make.
Oh, I don't. Okay.
But do you remember the time where we were like doing like soul winning in Laredo in like the ghetto streets, like Burnside area?
Yeah.
And we were walking through the streets, and I would like feel the Lord like do this to me.
Yeah, like turn this street or whatever.
Yeah, you were with me.
Yeah.
And I'd be real confused. I'm like, what is happening? And so I'm like wandering these ghetto streets. Now, if you notice me, I blend in about as well as I do now as I did then into those ghetto areas.
You've never blended in. Like, we need to find.
So Bertha Sarai Romo Chapa. My cousin has been wedded in marital bliss. Congratulations, Sarai. That's for me though. Like, hooray, hip hip. That's like, if do that wherever you're doing, Sarai. Love you. But anyway, like, so we're walking through the streets, and like I feel the Lord like tugging me, directing me, like where to go. And I don't know what's going on. Well, sure enough, we end up at like this crack house, straight up a crack house, right?
Oh, yeah.
I end up at this crack house, and I see someone there, and it was actually a girl I used to go to church with. I grew up with her. And her sister's in full-time ministry, but she got into drugs. And she was there with her lighter and her spoon. Yeah. And I saw her, and I called her out by name. And she turned to me, and do you remember the face she made?
Yeah, she like she just went white and like.
She said, Jordan? And I said, what are you doing?
She went straight into tears.
And she came to me. I prayed for her, led her back to the Lord. And she went, and that's what it means to be war ready. That's what that means, is to be ready and on your toes and to be sent to the Holy Ghost. That doesn't come with a lack of, it comes with, obedience has to be hand in hand in that. So here we have the story of Gideon. So first things first, and when we talk about the story of Gideon, let's go at verse 11. Now an angel of the Lord came and sat underneath the terebinth tree, which is in Ophrah, which belonged to Joas the Abizarite, while his son Gideon threshing the wheat in the winepress in order to hide it from the Midianites. First glance we get of Gideon, he's hiding. I love Gideon because in my opinion, and I love all the Bible characters, but in my opinion, Gideon has to be one of the most relatable Bible characters because it's true. You might feel great. You might say, like, Lord, I want to do it. But when push comes to shove, there's like a scary feeling about to do it. Like you're about to jump off this ledge. Like you're about to, and the Bible says the Lord has not given you a spirit of fear, but a power of love and a sound mind. But even then, like every time we're about to speak at the high school and I see all those students that don't want to be there, I look at their faces, but then I'm telling you, it's like nervous. And the second the microphone is in my hands, all fear is gone. All worry is gone.
But that's the thing. Like, people don't realize that they see great examples of men and women of God or great testimonies, and they just see the end result. You know, it's very similar to how like people follow workout pages and want to look exactly like that. I want to look exactly like that person, but they're not willing to like go to the gym as much as they do or cut their diet as much as they do. They're not willing to sacrifice for that moment to see those results, you know? So it's it's that stepping out part. Like Gideon probably just would have wanted to stay hiding there.
Yeah. So that's the first thing we get. So the first glimpse we get of Gideon is a relatability. He's hiding from the people, the Midianites, you know. And now what's ironic is, and if you're writing things down, you're writing expressions down, Gideon's hiding from the very thing God's called him to conquer. Why is that so important? Because of the first words we hear come out of the angel's mouth. Verse 12, the angel of the Lord appeared to him and said to him, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." So I love what the first part of that says, and it's just that reassurance, and it's a reassurance that people need to hear today, that people need to hear right now. Look, I don't know how many Gideons I'm speaking to right now, but I need you to understand that the Lord is with you. You might not see yourself like this. Listen, understand, it doesn't care how old you are or how young you are. That does not matter. It doesn't matter. Samuel was already well into his age when he anointed David. And David is so young, he was 15. So it doesn't matter how old you are anointing him or how old you are getting anointed. God has called you. And the angel of the Lord tells to Gideon, "The Lord is with you, mighty man of valor." If you're writing notes down, write this down. It's important how I perceive myself. Gideon said to him, "Oh, my Lord, if the Lord is with us, then why?" And he goes right into whining. "Why has all this happened to us? And where are all the miracles of our fathers told us about, saying, did the Lord not bring us up from Egypt? But the Lord is now forsaken and deliver us into the Midianites." Now, Gideon is complaining, like, why has the Lord abandoned us? Why has the Lord given us? Why hasn't? And Gideon doesn't even realize at this point that he is who the Lord has sent. And there are people right now that are listening to me. You're waiting for that miracle. You're waiting for that healing. You're waiting for that breakthrough to happen in your family. You're waiting for that breakthrough to happen at your work, when you are the breakthrough that God has sent to that situation. You are the breakthrough. It's your prayer that's going to bring that healing. It's your prayer that's going to bring that prosperity. It's your prayer that's going to see the chains break at your workplace, the chains break in your family. And you're over here and you're crying, "Lord, why hasn't it happened yet? Lord, why hasn't it happened yet?" You're doing the same thing Gideon has done, but God's called you and you don't even realize that you're the Gideon in the situation of your home. You don't even realize this. You were called. I'm getting carried away. I'm getting worked up. 14. Then the Lord turned to him and said, Go in this might of yours, and you shall save Israel from the hand of the Midianites." And he sends it and labels it with this last awesome text. "Have I not sent you?" And so Gideon goes and again complains. So he said to him, "O Lord, how can I save Israel? Indeed, my clan is the weakest, and I am the weakest of my father's house." So not only is my family line the weakest family line, but I'm the weakest in the family line.
Well, I love what verse 14 says, because in another translation it says, "Go with the strength you have."
Yes.
So go with what you have now. And then Gideon's response is, "Do you not know what family I come from? We're the weakest." But the Lord told him, "Go with what you have now."
And listen, there are people in this place, you are counting yourself and canceling yourself for what you've been through and what you've done. There are people who will stop short because they've sinned, because of their addictions to pornography, because of their addictions to drugs, or their past relationships that they've had, or all the premarital things that they
There's
shouldn't have
shame
done.
and guilt.
All the shame. Check this out. I don't know if you knew this. I just found this out studying this a little bit more. Gideon says that and he says in the different translations, like, I'm a land of low stature, which isn't true. Because you come to find out that Joas, Gideon's father, was the Israelite to turn all of Israel back to idolatry worship.
Mm-hmm.
He was the one that got all of Israel to turn from God. And here we are. Gideon, the son of the one who messed everything up, is the one that's called. Now, there are people listening to me right now. You're blaming your past. You're blaming things your parents have done. You're blaming things. That doesn't matter, because it didn't matter for Gideon. Listen, there had to have been some sort of platform that the father had. There had to have been something for him to get everybody to turn back away from it. But here we have Gideon. And what the enemy meant for evil, God's going to turn around and use for good. Now, here's what's even cooler. The story of Gideon, the more and more you get into it, the cooler and cooler it gets. Because Gideon goes from being this weakling, and you see it. What does Acts chapter 2 say? When the Spirit of the Lord came upon them, they received what? Power. And Acts chapter 4 even says, when the Spirit of the Lord was upon them, they spoke with
authority and power.
Well, it says boldness.
Boldness.
They spoke with the boldness. That's great. Check this out. Verse 28, and then when the mighty city arose early in the morning, where the altar of Baal was torn down, and the wooden image was beside it cut down, and the second bull being offered to the altar which had been built. So they said to one another, who has done this thing? And when had inquired, had they asked Gideon, son of Joas, has done this thing? Then the men, verse 30, check this out. This is crazy. Verse 30, then the men of the city said to Joas, bring out your son, that he may die, because he has torn down the altar of Baal, and because he has cut, it was his own son. And look what Joas says. Joas to all who stood against him, would you plead for Baal? Would you save him? Let one who would plead for him be put to death by morning. If he is a god, let him plead for himself, because his altar has been torn down. Therefore, on the day he called for, I don't know how to even say that, Baal, saying, let Baal plead against him, because he has torn down his altar. Essentially, the dad says, okay, hey, hold on. If Baal's really a god, let Baal seek his own justice. And if he's not dead by the morning, kill the person who believes in him. So none of them do that. So then the Midianites and the Amalekites and the people of Eastern gather around the Spirit of the Lord. And here it is. Verse 34. But the Spirit of the Lord came upon Gideon, and he blew the trumpet, and the Abiezrites gathered behind him. And he sent messengers throughout I don't know how to say that one, who also gathered behind him. He said to them, messengers, ushers, they said, came up to meet him. So Gideon said to God, will you save Israel by my hands, as you have said? Now, here's what is cool. And this is before the fleece, what he's having God, what you'd have him do. The Amalekites, the Midianites, he was up against these boys. And the Abiezrites were the people that were about to kill him, right? But look at what happens when the Spirit of the Lord comes upon Gideon. The crazy part of this scripture is, and there's a lot of names in this, but the crazy part of the scripture is, the people that come out to kill him become his army. Meaning that if you are war ready, if you are listening to what God has called you to do, if you are taking up this boldness, if you allow the Holy Ghost, the people who were sworn to kill you will end up dying for you. That's something that only God can do. Miracle number one. Miracle number one, he turned the people that were going to kill Gideon into the very army Gideon was going to use to destroy the Midianites. So the big tally number, the people that he got was around like 33,000 people, soldiers, right? If you're writing down notes, point number 2 is, where is God calling you to stand? God had talked about something very, she was kind of touching base on it. But what it was you can't be used if you're living in fear, right? God, how can God use you? So look, these are the requirements that God had on the army. So God tells them, the Lord said to Gideon, the people who are with you are too many for me to give the Midianites into their hands, lest Israel claim glory for itself against me, saying, my own hands have saved me. Now, therefore, proclaim a hearing to the people. Whoever is fearful and afraid, let him turn and depart once from Mount Gilead. So the first thing is one, these victories that we walk in are not my victories. They're God's. Part 2, the first thing that God disqualified soldiers for were those who were fearful and afraid. Number 1, you can't be war ready, nor can you be expected to fight if you're living in fear and if you're being afraid. I'm not discounting you. God's canceling you.
Well, because there can't be any faith where fear is.
There can't be any faith where fear is. Love that Pastor Rodney was arrested in a time where all the churches were afraid. Love that all these churches were still coming against him, how selfish Pastor Rodney was to not. That's where you know. All those churches, the church that actually called Pastor Rodney? Called the police to report Pastor Rodney? Gone. Their pastor was arrested for child pornography.
Well, it's because, how... And it just, when you really think about it, it just makes zero sense. How are you going to be afraid and then read that in the end times there'll be more persecution for the church and think you're ready for that?
No, they're not.
You're ready for persecution when you're not ready for negative comments about you. It just doesn't make zero sense. So even the Bible says, in the end of days, people will depart from the faith.
Even when we were here and COVID hit, Pastor Mike says, well, get ready. Let's have service outside. There are pictures of Pastor Mike preaching with an umbrella in the pouring rain. It's my favorite picture. Yeah. He's preaching in the pouring rain.
It's pouring, and he's not stopping.
It was super funny because the musicians, all the rain started getting on our instruments. We all went, ah! And we all ran off with our stuff. And Pastor Mike thought that was very funny.
Yeah, he was laughing.
But, how many services do we have outside? Maybe 2 or 3? Maybe?
No, it was several.
Pastor Mike was like, I'm done with this. Let's go back inside. And so it was,
because we didn't do it in the winter. It was.
It was peak.
It was when heat.
Hey, guess what? A hurricane's gonna hit this Sunday. You know what? So Pastor Mike was done with it.
Yeah.
The first people God disqualified are the people that are living in fear. Gideon turned to the people, the 33,000 army, 33,000 members, and said to them, if you are afraid, you can go home. He's left with 20,000. 13,000 men turn around. Then point number 2 comes. He's making fun of me.
We need to wrap up soon.
Point number 2. Or that's not point number 2. Point number whatever. God tells him after the 20,000 people, the Lord said, the people are still too many. Bring them down to the water, and I will test them if you were there. That if whom they go. Okay, let's just paraphrase from this point forward. At this point forward, God tells Gideon, there are too many people still with you. What I need you to do is you're going to take everyone down by the water. Whoever sticks their face into the water is not prepared to be my army. Whoever takes up and drinks it, those are the people that are going to be in my army. So that actually says a couple things. First things first, the people that God disqualifies are the people who aren't executing things in excellence. God cannot bless you. You have to do it with the level of excellence. 2, you can't see who's going to attack you if your face is in the ground. How can you be expected to be ready if your face is getting water when you're there? No, it becomes a liability. And who did God end up using? Well, maybe. You cannot fight without excellence. And you cannot fight if there's laziness in your life. What does that say, drinking with your face in the water? It says, 1, you're doing things the easy way out. You're just putting your face in there, drinking that water like that. That's not, 1, it's not excellence. And 2, it's not ready. And 2, it's unprepared. The difference between here, though you might get water and you might get filled up a lot slower, you're ready for whenever something happens. Who's quicker on their feet? The one who has eye level to it or the one whose face is in the ground?
Right.
And the last thing is what do you see when your face is in front of that water? You see your face. It can't bless you if it's about you. Boom. Gideon's still nervous at this point. Isn't it ironic, though? Gideon has fear. He's the ones that left. It's thinned out to 300 men. So Gideon says, and the Lord says, "Look, Gideon, are you afraid?" And Gideon says, "Yes, Lord, I'm still afraid." Pay attention to this. So Gideon says, "Go into the camp of the Midianites." There are people here who are waiting for their moment. There are people here who are waiting for God to do something, and you're nervous, and God's going to call you to the exact place you're nervous about. God called Gideon to the very camp he was afraid to be in.
But if you look at just the pattern that the Bible shows us from beginning to end, including Gideon, the Lord will send you to a place where you might not feel like that's your strength, or you might not feel like that's like, Lord, that makes me nervous.
Right.
But if you were extremely confident, you wouldn't need the Lord. You would do it in your own strength. So even with Gideon, the Lord sent him to a place where Gideon could not depend on himself. Nothing about it. Like, why are you decreasing my army? Why are you picking me? I'm the weakest of my family.
Like, God, it's really going to have to be you.
Like, Lord, like, if you're actually going to do this, then you're going to have to come through because I can't do it. And that's in the position that all of us are in. Go and respond to the call of God on your life, even if you feel like, God, I can't do this on my own. That's where the supernatural kicks in. That's where God gets the glory. How would God get the glory if we see, oh, well, Jordan's very good at that? No, God gets the glory because there's no way we can do that. There's no way we can pull that off on our own.
And look, and there are people who are like, look, Lord, I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm going to go to the nations. Lord, I'm ready. I want to, dude, start in your backyard. Start where you are now. Understand, David's story didn't begin on the battlefield. It began with the sheep. David's story doesn't begin with all the glory. It begins when he fought something by himself. No one would have known it happened if he had not ever told Saul.
Right.
And you know what? The only reason David even mentioned it was to say, I'm qualified to do this. Because there ain't no way a 15-year-old can kill a bear, and there ain't no way a 15-year-old can kill a lion with his own hands. If the same way God delivered those two animals into my hand, he's going to deliver this guy. Gideon goes to the camp of the Midianites, and the Midianites, one of them had a dream, and Gideon's listening. What's the bread called? Find out what the bread's called. Barley bread. A Midianite had a dream. He said, I had a terrible dream that there was a piece of barley bread that came rolling down the hill, hit our post, knocked our post down, and killed everybody in the tent. And someone in the Midianites tribe translated the dream. Said, you know what that means? That means that God's going to give us into the hands of Gideon.
Right.
And encouraged Gideon. You know what I didn't know about barley bread? Out of all the breads, it's the most fragile. that in itself will preach. Gideon heard this message, was pumped up. That night, they took their vases, they took their torches, they blew their trumpets. The Midianites, by the time the attack happened and all that happened, the fear of Gideon flooded the entire camp of the Midianites. So when they bursted out with that sound, the Midianites woke up already with the concept that the Israelites were in the tents, and they killed each other. And the Midianites that ran away, Gideon chased them down and killed them himself.
Right.
It's time to be war ready. You know what's great about that story? God had the victory, but Gideon still had to pull out his sword. God had the victory, but you need to do the work too. There's a lot that's happening here at Church in the City. There's a lot that God's doing right now. There's soul winning on Saturdays. Do your part. Do your part with where you are. You know what? Even if it's as simple as sharing this message, as simple as sharing the live streams, as tagging people in live streams. You know, sharing's great, but if you tag a bunch of people, that's a whole lot more. It actually pulls up on their feed as well. Called algorithms, guys. We love you. I believe that there are some Gideons here. You're believing for God to do something in your life when it's your hands that God's anointed to do that very thing. And listen, the victory is going to be because of God, but it'll be because you walked in that obedience. You got to be sick and tired about being sick and tired. Be done with fear. Be done with the limitations you set on yourself. If we have a limitless God, you have limitless possibilities. What does the Bible say? I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. And that's really particular too. Because the Bible doesn't say I can do all things through Christ who does it for me. I can do it because God's given me that supernatural strength. You have anything to add?
Nope.
Well, we love you guys. Remember, God made you special and He loves you very much. We will see you guys today at prayer here in a little bit at 12. We love you guys. And if Eleanor's watching, I love you, Eleanor. Mwah. I love you, Mom, Dad. And yeah, I'll see you on Sunday. Bye. You need to help me in this thing.